Welcome back to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon. And before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and also subscribe. We are still very much on the road to 1,000 subscribers, but we are knocking on the door, getting to that mark steadily, just past the 980 subscriber threshold. Can't believe we've reached that kind of milestone already. So if you want to join along on that journey, please press that big red button down below. Also, turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future episodes. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, the little housekeeping in the beginning I like to do, we're going to talk about AJ Green for a little bit. And of course, he was one of the bright spots of this Milwaukee Bucks team last year, shooting an incredible percentage from three. I believe was he number 8 in the league last year? I think he was definitely top 10, maybe around 11, at around I think like 42 or 43% from three. So AJ Green, of course, over the course of this summer, a summer that was dominated by the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade saga stuff, the Kyle Kuzma kind of trade rumors. Are we going to be able to get anything for him? And of course, Pat Connaughton leaving, Brooke Lopez leaving, all that stuff. AJ Green was one of those guys kind of at the top of the list of priorities, talking about are we going to re-sign him to a decent extension? And this was something that Bucks fans were really looking forward to throughout the course of the offseason, and it just never came. And this was despite AJ Green being eligible for an extension since July. And recent comments from Bucks general manager John Horst during media day, which happened a couple of days ago now, have kind of made things a little bit more eerie in terms of AJ Green's immediate future and the likelihood that he'll receive a decent contract extension. Not that he said anything to the degree of, oh, I don't think we're going to bring him back, or things are kind of like the waters are getting a little muddied with regard to a potential extension. But what John Horst said during media day was essentially that, we're still looking to get a contract extension done with AJ Green, and we're still actively working on these terms. But the main thing with this is, if he's been eligible since July, why hasn't there been any kind of traction with regard to a contract extension? You would think that something like this for a player that was obviously very integral to the team, in AJ Green, you would think that they'd like to get a young guy that has so much potential to contribute to a good team locked down on a contract extension. It really doesn't make any sense as to why negotiations or things of that nature for this, if for an extension for this kind of player, has drawn on so long. It is kind of now becoming a point of concern with a lot of fans and a lot of media members alike, as it should be, because again, as a guy that performed as positively as he did this past year, and obviously there's a lot of financial issues that the Milwaukee Bucks have now had to undergo, especially after the Damian Lillard wave and stretch and signing Miles Turner to that big deal. There's been a lot more complications, I guess, with regard to the salaries of certain guys, but you would like to think that they would have saved a little bit of space in the cap to bring back AJ Green on an extension. But just the fact that the conversation about a contract extension still lingering around even after basically the completion of the offseason, it's somewhat a cause of concern for the Milwaukee Bucks and for the immediate future of AJ Green, even though I'm very confident that a deal will be agreed upon. We will get AJ Green back on a multi-year extension. But the question is just, when will that be? When will the Milwaukee Bucks decide to commit to something like that? And of course, as a lot of other people believe, they should sooner rather than later. But it's still just a cause of concern. Even though John Horst is saying we like to bring him back, the question is when. If it wasn't immediately when he became eligible in July and then all throughout the summer, then when could it possibly be? So that's just a real kind of gray area where we don't really know what's happening with AJ Green, but we know for a fact, or we're about 95% sure that he's going to be back, or he's going to lock up a contract extension. It's just a matter of when. But anyways, moving forward, we're going to talk about something that Giannis said. I believe this was also during media day when he was doing the Zoom from Greece because has COVID. He was talking about the, like I have mentioned before, the off season full of trade rumors, the whole trade saga, and these constant reports of, oh, Giannis is unhappy. Giannis is really considering taking his talents to a new team, requesting a trade. Um, Giannis basically came out and said, because as I talked about in the last episode, Giannis is a very straightforward guy, very honest guy, and very blunt in some cases. And with what he said recently, it's just, echoing that point. Basically, what I'm trying to get at here, the long and short of it, is that Giannis said that the reporting of him wanting a trade, or him surveying his options or different teams that he could go to via trade, that there's always some truth to those reports, and those are his words, that whenever that reporting tends to come around, there's always some truth to it. So it's not anything that we didn't know before. We knew that Giannis takes this stuff seriously, and whenever he makes it known that, I want to compete for a title, I want to be in whatever situation is necessary for me to be able to win at the highest level, then that's where I'm going to be. And that's also what he said following up these quotes, that there's always truth to the reporting, and that he always wants to be in a position where he knows that he can compete at the highest level to win a title. So it's not necessarily information that we didn't know, but it was kind of jarring just hearing him say it flat out, that whenever reporting comes around that, oh, he's looking at his options with regard to trades, that it's true more often than not, or at least that there is at least a semblance of truth to those reports. It kind of confirms your worst fears in a way, where you have a guy like Giannis kind of um, like putting one foot out the door, one foot back in, by saying these kinds of things, that he's always assessing his options. He's always looking at, potential trade destinations, or he always has it essentially in the back of his mind that he can request a trade at any time and go somewhere where he knows that he can win. And just hearing him say that, a little bit jarring, a little bit uncomfortable, but this is, of course, him playing, well, both the short and long game in a way, because he's always putting pressure on the Milwaukee Bucks front office. He's always, leveraging his importance to the team, not just as a player in the present, but just overall his legend continues to grow within this franchise every single year. So he leverages that impact on the franchise and his impact on the court every single night. And he basically forces the Milwaukee Bucks front office to always um, expend all of their assets, and put him in the best position possible to win games. Oh, something's in my eye. But again, not really surprising comments, but still just a little bit jarring to actually hear it straight from the horse's mouth, that there's always truth to those reports. Um, Going to talk a little bit more about Doc Rivers on media day. He had a lot to say, as you would expect the head coach to, about the certain sets that they're going to run, different lineup combinations that the Milwaukee Bucks can run, and how they want to play, that they want to get out and run, and get out on the break, with Giannis kind of captaining the transition offense as you would expect him to. Um, but I wanted to talk about more of him saying that even after acquiring Miles Turner, and of course that being probably the biggest way that they can copy the Indiana Pacers style, is by taking their star center. He also talked about how, now there's the growing belief that uh big threes, or big twos, or whatever, just really top heavy teams don't necessarily work in this era, where there's so much talent just bursting all throughout the league, and every single good team in the NBA now is super super deep. That's the formula to win games. That's a formula to compete for a title, as we saw with both the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers this past year in the finals. Two of the deepest teams in the NBA got to that point where they're battling in game 7 of the finals. There's a reason why those two teams were in that position, and it's because of their incredible depth. And now the Milwaukee Bucks, after bringing back several key guys, bringing in Miles Turner, they do have a considerable amount of depth. And this is a way that Doc Rivers believes that the Bucks can kind of imitate the Pacers and their strategy going into next year, because now with this added depth, and specifically with fresh legs too, and young legs, there's hope that the Milwaukee Bucks, at least not necessarily stylistically, but just from a depth perspective, that they can imitate the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunders of the world. Maybe those specific players that make up their bench rotation aren't on the exact same level as the Thunder's Alex Caruso and Lou Dort and Aaron Wiggins and Case and Wallace, and the Pacers, Ben Shepherd, Aaron Neesmith, Andrew Nemhard, Ben Matherin, all these kinds of guys, Obi Toppin. But the Bucks do have a very skilled group of guys that can hone in on certain skills, like 3-point shooting, and getting out and running, and that can potentially make for a very good product, and not necessarily just a good product, but it could lead to wins for not the Indiana Pacers, the Milwaukee Bucks. Doc Rivers knows what he has. He knows, and John Horst knows, that there's more shooting on this team than there's ever been before, even after leading the league in 3-point percentage. And they're going to use that to their advantage. They know that they brought in young guys, or at least younger guys like Cole Anthony, to sort of captain the bench offense, and you'll have Ryan Rollins making good contributions, and like we talked about, AJ Green before, and Amir Coffey, who will more than certainly make this rotation. Young legs and just more legs will hopefully lead to good things for the Milwaukee Bucks. And finally, wanted to get on Bobby Portis, talking about his willingness to come back to the Milwaukee Bucks even when there was a bunch of trade speculation, namely with the Golden State Warriors were a big team as they were trying to look for a concrete piece that was experienced and has, championship experience. Um, and especially throughout the whole Jonathan Kuminga sweepstakes. Of course, now Jonathan Kuminga re-signed with the Warriors on a 2-year deal, but Bobby Portis, he kind of talked playfully during the media day about how he made a joke that the only reason why he didn't want to go anywhere is because he didn't want to pack up all his stuff and bring all his bags with him. But I love how Bobby Portis has been so upfront and evidently positive about his relationship with John Horst in the front office and all the higher ups, and how he really feels as though Milwaukee's home. There's nowhere else that he sees himself being. And it's just Bobby Portis has really become a franchise icon for the Milwaukee Bucks, and we're really going to have to start putting him, in maybe a couple of years, in conversations as one of the most impactful Milwaukee Bucks that there has ever been, and especially considering the 2021 title run. But Bobby Portis is going to do great things for the Milwaukee Bucks this year, and he's a guy. I'm kind of coupling him with Cole Anthony as guys that are only going to benefit even more from the Bucks' newfound spacing. Again, after a year where they lead the league in 3-point percentage, they bring in guys like Cole Anthony and still have the Torian Princes, Gary Trent Jr.'s of the world, AJ Greens of the world. Bobby Portis, especially with how he likes to operate in the mid range, he will be able to feast even more on those kinds of opportunities, kind of face up opportunities back to the basket. And of course, we know him to be a very consistent 3-point shooter. Bobby Portis is just going to fall in line with the rest of the Milwaukee Bucks depth and fall right into their offensive strategy. And it's only going to lead to good things. And I'm just so happy that Bobby Portis was able to make his way back to Milwaukee, as we all knew that he would. It was just maybe a little bit scary for a certain number of time when those kind of trade rumors started to really first pop out. But Bobby Portis loves this team. He loves the franchise. He loves the front office, loves the coaching staff. And we're going to be able to watch him in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform for at least the next 2 years, guaranteed, or 3 years, however long his extension was. But, anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. Again, I've been Dean Simon. And before you go, leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Still trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber threshold, so I would really appreciate if you could help us do that. All right, I will see you guys in the next one. Keep those post notifications on, and go Bucks.